could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Whoa. To Monday Night Football overtime. Falcons, Packers, you know what it is. This one I never thought was going to be competitive, and it wasn't. Green Bay, the superior team here, they came into the night undefeated. They leave into their bye week undefeated at 4-0 as they get it done in this football game against the winless Atlanta Falcons, 30-16. I asked the question, and I knew the answer before I asked it. It really was a rhetorical question. I said, no, Davante Adams, he tweeted out early this morning, he knows his, I guess other people know my body better than me. I'm not playing tonight. I want to play. I think I'm ready to play. We already knew about the surgery to Allen Lazard earlier on the core muscle surgery. Wasn't going to be available for quite some time, was placed on IR earlier in the week. And so I said, well, who's he going to throw the football to? Marquez Valdez-Scantling? Let me guess, Robert Tonyan? Well, shit. It was Robert Tonyan tonight. It was the backs and the tight ends that ultimately won the day in the passing game for the Green Bay Packers. Rodgers at one point in this game was 17 of 17 throwing to backs and tight ends in this football game. He only completed 6 passes. He was 27 of 33 in this ball game. Rodgers was sparkling again. And he's 14. I think he's now 11 or 12 touchdowns. No interceptions on the season. He's right there in that mix for the MVP in terms of the discussion that we're having after the quarter mark of the season. Obviously, Russell Wilson is, I think, still ahead there, but Rodgers isn't that far behind. Both of those teams right now leading undefeated ball clubs as the Packers get it done 30-16. In what felt like a game, this kind of felt like the Ravens-Washington game from Sunday, where the Falcons were never actually within striking distance, but you never felt like they were getting blown out per se. They were always hanging around, but you never thought they would win, and they ultimately lose by 2 touchdowns. Same thing happened to the Washington football team. They were never really in the game, but they were never really out of the game. You never felt like they were going to win, but they were never out to the point where you're like, yeah, I'll just turn this off or watch something else because they're not even close. And they lost by 2 touchdowns, 30-16. So this kind of had the same feel. The Packers never were threatened in this game. Neither were the Ravens on Sunday. And you never thought they were going to lose this football game. And the defense did what they needed to do. Look, this Falcons team came into this game banged up. So did the Packers. No excuses. I've talked about that. No one cares about how many guys you got injured or who's playing, who's not playing. Everybody's dealing with injuries. Some teams more than others. We get that. But at the end of the day, next man up. Figure it out. Make it happen. And so the Packers, they have the guy in the league right now, probably the best at making it happen with less around him. Okay? He's done it for years in Green Bay. You heard them say, well, without Davante Adams, they were 4-0 last year. Yeah, because Aaron Rodgers finds a way to get it done with other guys. I always joked last year that, this could be the Jake Kumaro game. Okay, well, tonight was the Ryan Tonyan game, okay? So, you don't know who's going to get you, but somebody's going to get you. Last week, it was the Allen Lazard game. Somebody's going to get you because Aaron Rodgers is that dude. He's a bad, bad man. And you saw him at his best again tonight. And so, I used to say this all the time with Peyton Manning when he was playing. I said, enjoy this, bask in it, because once he's gone, you're going to miss him. I say the same thing with Tom Brady. And, it was more poignant when he was in New England, because I'm like, you'll never see a bad guy like this again. Say goodnight to the bad guys, because once he leaves New England, you'll never hate a team as much as you hated the Patriots. You'll never want to see a team in the NFL lose as much as you want to see the Patriots lose. And you'll never see a B&B winning factory type of evil empire like that again. And oh, by the way, the guy running that show on the field in Tom Brady, you won't find many better than him. So Enjoy it while it lasts. Bask in this. Enjoy greatness while it's still there to be enjoyed. Same thing with Aaron Rodgers. Enjoy this, man. You may never see another guy like this again. I told you, he's the greatest quarterback in terms of the whole tool belt, the whole skill set I've ever seen. Now, I said Mahomes is gaining on him, but you'll never see a guy smoother with the football in his hands, rolling to his left, rolling to his right, flick of the wrist. I told you, when Mahomes does things, sometimes it looks a little hard. And sometimes Mahomes makes it look easy too. Don't get it twisted. Last week against the Ravens, he's backing up, backpedaling, and throws a dime. And it was just a flick of the wrist. Mahomes can make it look easy too, but nobody makes it look more effortless than Aaron Rodgers. And when he was at his peak, when he was in his prime as an athlete, he could run too. And he still can move. Not like he once could, but he can still get out of the pocket and hurt you. So, for me, that guy is still Aaron Rodgers, man. Throws the tightest spiral you've ever seen in your life. Throws the most accurate ball on the move I've ever seen. And he's a machine, man. And he's playing with a sense of purpose this year. They lit a fire under him, whether directly or indirectly. They lit a fire under him when they drafted Jordan Love in the first round. And I still contend that no matter what happens, Aaron Rodgers is not going to finish his career as a Green Bay Packer, because at some point you got to find out what Jordan Love is. So while we're having this love fest with Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur and how these two have really established a relationship in the offseason, that's great. But at some point, they're going to have to tell Aaron Rodgers, okay, man, time's up. And I don't know if Father Time comes and taps him on the shoulder first before that even happens. But with the way these quarterbacks are aging these days, whether you look at Brady, you look at Breeze, you look at Rodgers. And Rodgers is a little different because, remember, he didn't come in the league and just start playing right away like Roethlisberger and Eli Manning and some of these guys, Brady and so forth and so forth. He had to wait a while. So there's a little bit less mileage attached to him in terms of his career and what he's got left in the tank potentially. But he's had some injuries too that may have kind of sped up that process a little bit and maybe catches him back up with some of these quarterbacks that I've just named and mentioned. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's going to finish his career in Green Bay. But it was another virtuoso performance from him tonight as he carved up the Atlanta Falcons. And we knew they couldn't stop anybody. That's been their biggest problem. They've jumped out to leads. Part of the reason they can't hold on to these leads is because they can't stop any damn body. Couldn't stop the Bears when they had a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter. Couldn't stop the Dallas Cowboys when they had a 15-point lead with less than 5 minutes to go in that game. And they couldn't stop the Green Bay Packers tonight. So we know what their problem is. Couldn't stop Russell Wilson. Nobody stopped Russell Wilson to this point. And, when you talk about schedules, theirs hasn't been the easiest either, Even though there were some winnable games in there. They should have beat Dallas. That's the one team on the schedule that stinks. Other than that, they played 3 teams with a combined 1 loss on their schedule right now. Have the Green Bay Packers. The Atlanta Falcons. A 3-1 Chicago Bears team, a 4-0 Seattle Seahawks team, and a 4-0 Green Bay Packers team. So between those 3 teams alone, you're talking about 11-1. Now, you throw the Cowboys in there, it drags it down a bit because they're 1-3. And, oh, by the way, the one win came from that Atlanta Falcons team, which it shouldn't have. But the Falcons have made their bed. They have to lie in it, similar to the Houston Texans. I think we understand that Bill O'Brien is gone, and I think Dan Quinn's on borrowed time in Atlanta. It's only a matter of time, and it's a shame because I actually really like Dan Quinn. I actually think he's a really good head coach, and I think he's a hell of a motivator. And I thought last year was a hell of a job that he did when he looked buried and dead. His coaching career in Atlanta looked to be unsalvageable, and somehow he rallies the troops when they've got nothing to play for. They go out and they win some big ball games, especially on the road in New Orleans, in San Francisco. They save his job. I think this guy's a hell of a master motivator. So I hate the fact that he doesn't know how to hold leads in ball games, that they didn't win the Super Bowl back in 2016, and that he can't hold a lead to save his life, and they haven't been able to hold leads this year to this point, and that's why they're not 2-2 right now instead of 0-4, or they're 0-4 instead of 2-2. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. You got to find ways to get it done in this league, and they haven't gotten it done this season, and they have had injuries. They showed you the list of guys in the secondary that aren't healthy, but you got to find a way to get it done, and they didn't get it done tonight. That's been the story of their season, that not finding ways to get it done. Julio! Seems like he's always hurt. Tonight would have been one of those nights where I would have just said, hey, look, we're playing the Green Bay Packers on Monday night. We're not beating the Green Bay Packers. You can't tell your team that. You can't tell anybody that. But if I'm Dan Quinn, that's what I'm thinking in my head. We're not going to win this football game. We got 5 games coming up. They showed you the 5 games coming up on the schedule, including a couple family business matters to attain to. In Carolina twice. You got some winnable football games. I would have said, you know what? We need you healthy for this 5-game stretch, because if we're going to get back in this thing, it starts next week at home versus Carolina. We need you for that game. Can't afford to have you banged up then. So you know what? You're going to sit down. Just like the Packers sat down Davante Adams, probably against his wishes. It's a lot easier to do that when you're 3-0 versus 0-3. But at the same time, you got to look at the big picture. And the big picture is, look, we're not beating Green Bay, whether we're at full strength or not at full strength. We're probably not going to go in there and beat the Packers on a Monday night. So how about this? How about we gear up for this next 5-game stretch and see if we can't find a way to go 4-1, 5-0 in that stretch and give ourselves a chance. 7 teams are getting in the postseason. So even if we're 4-5 after 9 games, we're not dead. So to me, tonight would have been the night to rest some guys. Julio ends up injuring his hamstring tonight. So now you're going to be on this whole Julio watch again next week. More likely than not, he probably will end up playing, but he won't be anywhere near 100%. Whereas if you would have sat him tonight, he would have probably been ready to go next week, and you would have been able to have Julio feeling a lot better and maybe a lot more effective, like the Julio we saw in week 1 versus the Seattle Seahawks that was tearing shit up. That's the Julio you need, not the guy that's out there just as a distraction and taking up coverage so that Calvin Ridley and other guys like Zacchaeus can eat. You need Julio to actually be a contributor, and now you might be without him next week in what is a must-win game probably for Dan Quinn. I don't think he's getting fired during the season, as I've said numerous times. Their ownership there, Arthur Blank and company, they're a classy group. I don't see them firing Dan Quinn during the season, but if you want any chance, and at 0-4, you're dead. Honestly, there's really no chance. But they showed me the schedule, and I'm like, so you're telling me there's a chance. However, we're acting as if Carolina is 0-4 too. Carolina just had 2 impressive wins back-to-back weeks against teams that we all perceive to be better than them. And they're playing hot football, and they're confident. So if anything, Carolina's going to be favored in that game against an 0-4 Atlanta ball club, whether that game's in Atlanta or Carolina. Doesn't really matter. They're probably going to be favored in that game, and they should be. So, here we are talking about, they could get right. We got to stop acting like these 0-4, 0-3 teams are just all of a sudden going to turn it on. I made the mistake of thinking, hey man, I looked at that Texas schedule, man. They could be on the come. Here they come. They got Minnesota at home, and Minnesota's looking like, these dudes look like chopped liver. They look like food to us. You got it the other way around. You got it the wrong way. We got to stop acting like these 0-4 teams aren't 0-4 for a reason. Like they just going to flip the switch and all of a sudden start winning ball games and they're good all of a sudden. No, the Falcons stink. The Texans stink. They're 0-4 for a reason. The Giants, the Jets, they stink. Some of these 1-win teams, they stink too. So you're not just going to flip the switch and start winning ball games. And that would have been all the more reason to say, hey, Julio, we just going to play you next week. Don't worry about tonight, man. You good. Hey, we know you want to play. We know you're fully capable. We know you got it out. This is what you do. But we going to rest you, and we going to go after it next week. And I would have done it that way. But I love Aaron Jones, to get back to the Packers for a second. He was stellar, especially in the first half. Didn't see much of him in the second half. They didn't really need him much in the second half, but he was outstanding in the first half of this game. Great stand by the Falcons, because this really could have gotten out of hand early. If they don't make that goal line stand, and I put that on the wide receiver. This is what happens when you're playing with practice squad guys. Number 82, I don't know his name, but that's a pass. You got to stretch that over the goal line. You can't fall down literally inches away from the white line. You got to find a way to get that football, whether you got to jump backwards, reach the ball over your head. You got to do something. You can't just fall down at the 1 inch line and be short to bring up 4th and inches. That being said, you got to find a way to get in from that short if you're Green Bay. You know, I know Aaron Rodgers is old, but that's a quarterback sneak. You don't need to turn around and hand that football off. And they didn't get in. And I think they might have even been in the gun, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a hell of a play by Atlanta there. And that really kept them in this ball game and gave them a shot. Because if you go down 14, I think at the time it would have been 14-3. This ball game could have gotten out of hand in the first half instead of it kind of getting out of reach in the second half. So credit the defense for at least giving them a chance and having that fighting spirit about them. But you never felt like Atlanta had a shot to win this game. At least I didn't. I can't tell you guys how you felt out there. I never felt like the Packers were in danger in this game, and they kind of coasted. A lot of smiles on that sideline for the Green Bay Packers. They look like they're having fun this year. Aaron Rodgers looks like he's having some fun this year, man, and that's good. I like that. I like to see Aaron Rodgers smiling, having fun, because the game is fun when he's playing well and the Packers are good. It's a much more entertaining league to watch when the Packers and Aaron Rodgers are good. Certain leagues are better when certain teams are better. You know, the NBA is better when the Lakers are good. It just is better when the Lakers are a good team. They're a villain. It's a team you love to hate, and it's just good when they're good. You know, baseball is good when the Yankees are good. You know, you love to hate the Yankees, and not that the Packers are villains, because they're really not. And we all love watching Aaron Rodgers play. It just, the league is more enjoyable when the good players are good and their teams are good. And Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, they were good last year. I thought they were more paper champions last year. They look a little bit more legit this year. They still haven't really played anybody yet. So the litmus test hasn't come. I still haven't, the Saints game was interesting, but they didn't have Michael Thomas. I still want to see them in some situations where they're uncomfortable. I haven't really seen that yet. They played the Lions. They stink. The Vikings, they stink. And even though they're starting to get their shit together a little bit, they still stink. And, they play this Falcons team. They stink. So really haven't seen them in an uncomfortable environment, in an uncomfortable situation against a team that's good. We haven't seen that yet. And I don't know if that happens until they play the Bears. I don't know what their schedule looks like, but at some point, we're going to see them in some tough games. They got San Francisco here in a couple of weeks, but that's not the same San Francisco 49ers team that they got beat up by a couple of times last year. So it'll be interesting to see what Green Bay looks like. I want to see them get tested. I just don't know who's going to do it. Who's going to administer the test? Because I don't think they have Tampa Bay on their schedule. So I don't know if Seattle didn't win the division last year. So I don't know who administers that test, because the NFC North is playing what division? They're playing the NFC South, because Chicago and Green Bay both played Atlanta, so that means they're playing the NFC South. So they will get Tampa Bay then. So that'll be the game, I guess, when I find out, okay, what are you about? Them in Chicago, because Chicago plays defense, and they're going to make Aaron Rodgers uncomfortable, and they're going to make them work. They always make Aaron Rodgers work, even when they're not good. Chicago is usually one of the teams that they struggle with in that division. So those will be the games that I pinpoint for this Packers team when I say, how good are you really anyway? I want to see what you do against Tampa. I want to see what you do against Chicago. Those will be the litmus test games for me this season in terms of how good is this offense, and is this defense much improved, especially Tampa. Not necessarily Chicago, because their offense is hit or miss. But Tampa's offense can rev it up and score, and I want to see what this defense, because that was the problem last year. The defense was soft, especially against the run, and the offense, got manhandled by San Francisco's defense, but a lot of people could say that last year. That defensive line was incredible last season. So I just want to see what the Packers are really about. But they did what they were supposed to do tonight. Make it 4 in a row in terms of games scoring over 30 points this season, 30 or more, I should say. This is the lowest output they've had all season long, believe it or not. They were the highest scoring team coming into the week after scoring a combined, 85, 42, and 43 in the first 2 weeks. I think they scored 43 in week number 1. They scored 42 the following week. And then they scored, last week? 37. So this was their lowest output of the season in terms of points, but it's still 30, So this offense has been dynamic and explosive, but again, they haven't really played anyone that's going to put up any kind of resistance. So again, it's going to be interesting to see what happens when they play a real defense and when they start playing some really serious teams in the conference, how they fare. But this was impressive. This is what you're supposed to do to teams that are inferior to you. You beat them up, and that's what they did tonight as they improved to 4-0. Got some super chats, so I want to take those real quick. And let's see. Door Gunner, thank you for the super chat. Door Gunner, greatly appreciate you. Door Gunner writes, Quinn, Gase, Patricia, all next to get the axe. Yeah, absolutely. I think Gase, even though they've come out and said he's not getting fired during the season, I still think that there's a chance he gets canned during the season. I think he's the next in-season guy to go. Now, I still believe Quinn gets the entire season. And I think this Falcons team is going to continue to fight, and they're going to win some games. I don't think they win enough to save his job, unlike last year when they were able to. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I don't know if there's any amount of games they can win to save his job, anything short of making the postseason, which at 0-4 is a long shot at this point. So I think they're all gone. And Patricia is a guy that, you know how I feel about that whole situation in Detroit. But it's not looking good for him either, especially after they've blown. He's in the same boat as Quinn. They just have blown a bunch of leads. Not as dramatic as Quinn has done. But, 3 out of the 4 weeks, the Lions have had double-digit leads and have blown every single one of those leads and lost, with the exception of week 3. And I don't know if they had a double-digit lead in that game against Arizona, but I do know that in week 1, they had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, and that was some poor coaching on the part of Matt Patricia and some poor, execution by the players on the field. Matthew Stafford with an interception, a bad interception, and then obviously the rookie DeAndre Swift dropping the ball that would have gave them the touchdown and the win ultimately, and blowing that lead against fourth quarter Mitchell in that ball game. The following week, you're up big. And against Green Bay early in that game, that was a big surprise. And then Green Bay roars back and smokes you. Same thing happened in this game in week 4. You're up big early. Wow, 14-0 against the Saints. And then you give up 35 unanswered points and get smoked in that game. The final score makes it look like they were, hanging around at 35-29. But you give up 35 unanswered, man. That's rough. That's really, really rough. So I could see Matt Patricia getting canned at the end of the season too, but then again, I could have seen him getting canned at the end of last season, and he's still there. So it wouldn't shock me if they decided, hey, let's give him one more opportunity, especially if the Lions find a way to go like 7-9. But if they go, 5-11, I could see him getting fired too. So we'll see what happens. Got another super chat here. This one is from 61 Livy. Thank you for the super chat, 61 Livy. Greatly appreciate you. 61 Livy writes, not surprising, the Pats defense was impressive tonight. They get that INT from McCourty or the INT from that D lineman that was called. Incomplete, different game. I just think if they had Cam Newton, it's a different game. That was what I talked about earlier when we broke that game down, was that, if they have Cam Newton in that game, despite not getting that interception from McCourty early in the game that should have been a pick, despite not, and I thought that was an interception by Shaq Calhoun, they got jobbed on that play. But, despite all of that, if Newton's there, You don't more likely than not get the sack before halftime that leads to no points. You don't have the bad fumble where you literally see Taco Charlton jumping in the air as he's trying to turn the corner and he runs by you and you're still holding on to the ball as if, oh, he just disappeared into thin air. He's not coming to get me. And then he strips you of the football. Like, that classic Billy Ho. Classic Billy Ho, man. And so you don't get a number of these mistakes that were made in this game that really cost the Patriots. 4 turnovers, that's unpatriot-like. You know, a blunder right before the half, that's unpatriot-like. You know, they're usually the smart team. They usually do things the right way. You saw that stat, no penalties offensively the first 3 weeks and like 2 quarters of the season. They didn't get their first offensive penalty till like the 3rd quarter of this game. Unreal, you know? So they usually do things the right way. If they're going to lose ball games, they usually lose it because the other team just out-executed or out-schemed them, not because they self-imploded. But that's what they did tonight. And you got to put a lot of that on the fact that there was no Cam Newton in the game. But the defense did what I thought they were capable of doing. I didn't think they were going to do it to that extreme, though. Like, Mahomes didn't look comfortable. He didn't look like himself for much of the game. He missed some throws he normally makes. He didn't look like the Mahomes we saw a week ago against Baltimore. But that's because I really think that they weren't dialed in tonight. I think they looked across the field. They saw Billy Ho. They started to chuckle and laugh to themselves. And they said, we're not losing to that chump. We're not. And they were right. They didn't have to come with their A game because they were playing Billy Ho. And they said, what you going to do, take him out and put in Jarrett Stidham? Ooh, we're shaking in our boots. They weren't scared. So they knew they didn't. I surmise that if Cam Newton plays, you get a much more intense Chiefs football team in that ball game. And I just think that they looked at that team and said, there's no way we're losing to those guys. And they were right. Even though they put up a good fight, no way they were losing to those guys, and they were right. They were going to make mistakes. They were going to make sure that those guys were going to have some mistakes that ultimately turned the tide of the game, and that's what they banked on, and they were right. Thank you for the super chat, 61 Livy. Got another super chat from Silver Villains. My man Silver V, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Silver V writes, I really think that ESPN has finally figured it out in the booth. No more Booger McFarland or Jason Witten types. Thank God. I don't love this crew, but I don't hate it. I'm indifferent. So Steve Levy is a veteran. He's a pro. But he's a hockey guy. And so while I don't mind Steve Levy, his voice is easy on the ears. He's a veteran. I know him. I know he does good work. I don't have any problems with him. I actually like Brian Greasy. And Louis Riddick is okay, but it's not a booth that I would go to bat for. Like, I'm not going out and speaking on their behalf. But look, when you compare it to the last 2 booths, Monday night wise, that ESPN has put forth, it's much better. But is this better than the Mike Tirico, John Gruden booth? Absolutely not. Is this even better than the Sean McDonough, John Gruden booth? No, it's not. So it's a far cry from what it once was. It'll never be what it was with Tirico on ESPN, that is. Tirico was the best. And he's still, to me, the best. And it's a shame that he's not doing more football games because he is the best still in the game to me. You know, when I watch Notre Dame games, it's a joy just to listen to Mike Tirico call the game. He's still got his fastball. He should be doing games on a major network. But because he's at NBC and they still got Michaels as their play-by-play guy, and he should be still there. I still enjoy Al Michaels. He's not going to be able to get in there. I know he's doing some of their games. I think when they start, splitting those games up and doing different things, he'll get a little taste. But Mike Tirico, to me, is the gold standard if you're doing games, and it's a shame he's not doing more games, especially NFL games. So for what it's worth, yeah, these guys are better, but they don't move the needle for me, per se. But anyhow, got another super chat. This one is from Leo Suarez. Thank you for the super chat, Leo Suarez. Greatly appreciate you. Leo writes, still can't trust the Packers defense to legitimately contend for a Super Bowl. That bend but don't break defense won't work in the playoffs. You're probably right, depending on who you get as a matchup. Because there were plays out there to be made by the Falcons tonight. And every week you watch the Packers, there are plays to be made against their defense. You know, they gave up 4 to the Lions. They gave up, and I know the Vikings and even to the Lions to a lesser degree, there were some garbage time scores in there. I recognize that, but how much did they give up to the Vikings? They scored in the 30s, I believe, as well in that game. They might have scored 34 in the Lions might have scored like 31 or something like that. And, the Saints scored 30 without Michael Thomas. So I still have my doubts and my reservations about this Packers defense. Absolutely, I do. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. This is the thing. Unlike last year, where I saw legitimate teams that the Packers wanted no smoke with. They wanted no parts of. Like, San Francisco was the perfect matchup for them. Perfect. Because San Francisco, the things they did well, the Packers didn't. There isn't a team like that in the NFC this year. If Tampa Bay wants to go toe-to-toe shootout with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers and they got all their weapons and their gun is loaded, that's going to be a shootout. Neither one of those defenses can stop the other offense from putting up points. It'll just be an old-fashioned shootout. Aaron will have his 6-shooter, and Brady will have his 6-shooter, and may the fastest gun in the East win. And that's how it would be. But I don't think there's a team in the NFC that I look at and say, man, that's a really bad matchup for Green Bay. I don't look at a single one because nobody in this conference plays defense. Not a single one. The only team that plays credible defense, but their offense is really, really sketchy, is the Bears. Seriously. They're 3-1. They play defense. But their offense at times is a joke. It was against the Colts on Sunday. But I'm going to give them some time with old Nicholas Foles in the saddle now. I'll give them some time to try to, iron out some of those wrinkles and get some of those kinks worked out. But, outside of them, of the teams with really good records in the NFC, nobody else plays defense. Seattle doesn't play any defense. Tampa Bay, you can score on them. Green Bay is another team you can score on. Like, when you look around, and the NFC East doesn't even have a team worth discussing. So I'm not even going to bring them up. So when you look at, the Saints, you can score on them. When you look around the landscape in the NFC, there's a lot of teams that can score. Not a lot of teams that can stop other teams from scoring. So I don't think there's a bad matchup in the NFC for Green Bay this year like it was last year, where you look at San Francisco and say, man, that's going to be tough because they can get after the quarterback. They can run the football. And those were things that Green Bay wanted no parts of last season. So that's just the way I look at it. 61 Livy, thank you for doubling up. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, 61 Livy. Greatly appreciate you. 61 Livy writes, Steve Levy is okay, but man, how sweet would it have been to get Peyton Manning or Pat McAfee? Bills to game lead on the division now. # Bills Mafia. So here's the Peyton Manning thing. Like, I don't really know if Peyton Manning would be great in the booth. Like, there's this assumption that because he's so funny in these commercials, that Peyton Manning is a great, he's a great listen in the booth. I don't know if that's the case. Like, all of those, like, when he was on Saturday Night Live, he was hilarious, but that's scripted. When you see him on these commercials and he's funny, that's scripted. I remember he came into the booth one time, and I remember the same thing for Brett Favre. I remember Brett Favre came into the booth. It was on a Thanksgiving like 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. They actually lost to Jay Cutler and the Bears on a night where I think they retired Brett Favre's number, and It was a nasty, sloppy night at Lambeau, and the Bears just couldn't. I mean, the Packers just couldn't muster any offense, and the Bears snuck in there when nobody expected them to, and came out of there with a win. And Favre came in the booth that night. You know, anytime you get a legend coming to the stadium, you got to bring them up to the booth and you got to talk to them. And Brett Favre was so dry in that booth. He was almost like he was uncomfortable. And Peyton Manning came into the booth one time. I forget what game they were doing and what he was there for, but he was there. Maybe he was there supporting his brother Eli or whatever the case may be. But he was there. And he snuck into the booth, and they had him up there for about a couple of possessions. And it wasn't as smooth, and he didn't sound as comfortable as I thought he would. And I'm just not sure that you stick Peyton Manning up there, and all of a sudden he's going to be Tony Romo, and it's just going to click. I'm not sure if that's Peyton Manning or not. You know, that's the assumption that, oh, he'll be great in the booth. You know, and all these networks, especially ESPN, trying to throw all this money at him. I don't know if he'd be great in the booth or not. Like, I still have my doubts and reservations about him being great, you know? But that being said, I would like to see it. I'm not a Pat McAfee guy. I'm not. Like, he's one of those guys that tries to be funny too much. So much so that sometimes I feel like it takes away from the game. And, you know, I listened to him when he was doing the college football games, and I'm like, that's a little bit too much for me. I'm good. I'm a pass on Pat McAfee. And I actually like him. I like his show. I like his whole shtick. I think he's a really smart guy. I think he's funny. But I think there's a time and a place to be funny, and then there's times where you're trying to be too funny, and he knows the game. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he almost is overcompensating for something, but I don't think you need to overcompensate for the fact that you were a punter. We don't care about that. We know you know the game. And, you know, sometimes I just think he's trying to do too much. Sort of like when Dennis Miller was in the Monday night booth and he was always trying to crack jokes. And I'm like, dude, we want to watch the game. We don't want you to do a stand-up hour for the next 3 hours. Like, we want to actually hear the game being called, not you trying to come up with these one-liners and puns the whole night. So that was a mess. Tony Kornheiser and Dennis Miller. Oh, my God. I know some of you forgot about that. But I'm good on Pat McAfee. I really am. And I think that's why ESPN kind of steered clear of that. Because it's cool to have him doing Memphis versus Tulsa on a Saturday. I don't know if it's cool him doing, you know, New Orleans, Green Bay on a Monday. So, Bills do have a 2-game lead in the division now. And it could blossom to 3. Depending on what happens next week. No Cam Newton again against the Broncos. You know, old, what's his face? Old Brett Rippin might come through for you on Sunday. We'll see. I'd like to think that Pats defense, if they look anything like they did tonight, they'll confuse the young fellow. He'll throw 3 more picks, and they'll find a way to get out of there with a 16-13 win. It won't be pretty, but it'll be gritty and good enough for a win. But don't sleep on Vic Fangio's ability to scheme up against a young fella, because I think after seeing what they saw tonight from Billy Ho, I think they might roll with Jarrett Stidham next week. And so you might get 2 young football players, 2 second-year quarterbacks squaring off, and one guy's second career start and another guy's first career NFL start. So we'll see what happens next week. Anyway, got another super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Leo Suarez. Greatly appreciate you. Leo writes, Louis Riddick underrated in the booth. I don't feel that way. I think Louis Riddick is okay. He's all right. I'm not the biggest Louis Riddick fan. I'm not. I respect Louis Riddick, but I'm not enamored by Louis Riddick. A lot of you are enamored by Louis Riddick. I remember when when Washington was looking to kind of clean house, and we thought there was a chance that Bruce Allen would be fired and they were going to bring in a general manager and a head coach and all that. You'd be amazed at how many Washington football fans, because they watch a ton of ESPN, wanted Louis Riddick to be our new GM. And I'm like, Louis Riddick? GM? What makes you think he'll be any good at that? Like, this is the same guy that thought that Washington was destroying Dwayne Haskins because they put him in versus the Giants last year. Like, I'm just not the biggest Louis Riddick guy. He has some poignant takes, which he gets paid to do that. But I'm not the biggest Louis Riddick guy. But I respect him, and I respect his knowledge, and I respect what he does. But I'm not like, man, this booth is being held together by Louis Riddick. He's solid, but like I said, I'm indifferent about this booth. But coming from where they came from, this is an upgrade. But when you look at all of the other major booths around, this one is low on the totem pole. If this were a Fox or a CBS crew, this wouldn't be your number one crew. I don't even think they would be your number two crew. I'd take Iron Eagle. Listening to Iron Eagle before I'm listening to Steve Levy. So, but it's ESPN. You do what you can do. They tried. They swung. They made some contact this time. They swung and missed the last couple of times. At least they put the ball in play this time. Let's get through some comments. We got about 17 minutes, so I'm going to try to rip through as many of these as possible. Larry G's the best says, still think Mahomes is the most talented quarterback you've ever seen? I don't know where you heard that from. I've never said that. I've always said Aaron Rodgers is the most talented pure passer I've ever seen of the football. The most talented all-in-one body, scrambling ability, throwing on the run, pinpoint accuracy, all of that, athleticism, all in one body. It's Aaron Rodgers. Now, I said Mahomes is gaining on him, but I don't know if Mahomes will ever be the athlete Aaron Rodgers once was. Mahomes, I don't think he'll ever be the athlete that he's a good athlete, but he's not the athlete that Rodgers was in his prime. Anyhow, Captain Spartan says, I actually think the Falcons coaching job opportunity would be the best opportunity. You get an experienced quarterback that you can actually replace soon and an owner that is patient. I think that is going to be a high-profile job. I don't think, though, that is a job that you would take over the Houston job if you love Deshaun Watson, which I think most coaches would want an opportunity to coach Deshaun Watson with some of the talent that they have in Houston. I think that's a more desirable job. This is the only thing that's not desirable is the draft pick situation for the next couple of years because of all of the bullshit that Bill O'Brien did before he was ousted. You're looking at a situation that's not ideal from a roster building standpoint. So from that perspective, Atlanta has the leg up. But if you're just talking about a pure roster standpoint, you're talking about a quarterback that you think you can win big with, I think the job in Houston is going to be a little bit more attractive than that of Atlanta. And I think the Texans organization has been more than patient with Bill O'Brien. Even though he's won some games, let's not act like he hasn't been to the playoffs, the last 3 years or so. But they've been really patient with him because he's done some nonsense, and they allowed him to do it. So that tells you that they pretty much hands-off approach, laissez-faire. You do what you need to do. Just know if it doesn't work, it's falling in your lap, and you're going to pay for it. And that's what they did with that Nuke Hopkins trade. They told him. They had to have. That's how this hook is so swift. They had to have told him, look, if you trade Nuke and this shit doesn't work, we're blaming you. You're going to pay. You're falling on the sword for this one. He said, okay, all right. And he thought he was going to win this year. He didn't think he was going to start 0-4. But the football guys say, look, man, we're tired of your shenanigans. The chicanery stops this year. We're going to put the most nasty, vicious, flavor-delicious schedule on your ass and see how you navigate that. So we're going to throw in weeks 1 and 2, the two best teams in the AFC at you in Kansas City and Baltimore. After that, we're going to throw the Steelers at you. Good luck with that on the road. And then you're going to come home in week 4. And who knew the Vikings were going to start 0-3? I said 8-8. I didn't say they were going to start 0-3. So we're going to throw Minnesota at you at home, which if the Vikings were what some of you thought they were going to be, they would have came into that game no less than 1-2, maybe even 2-1. So that's a rough start to the season. And he wasn't able to navigate that tough start, and ultimately cost him his job. So we'll see what happens with them moving forward. Captain Spartan says, I actually have a feeling Falcons will hire Mike LaFleur, though chasing the ghost of Kyle Shanahan's offense. We'll see. the brother of Matt LaFleur, which is interesting because I don't know if Mike is still on Kyle's staff or not, but I know at one point he was on Kyle Shanahan's San Francisco staff. He might still be there. Captain Spartan says, that Ridley drop was huge. I guess he ain't ready to be a number one wide receiver like I thought. Also, this game is why I don't think Matt Ryan is a Hall of Famer. Then again, I'm personally biased. Yeah, that was a big drop early in the ball game, but Matt could have gotten to him faster. You know, he could have got that football to him quicker when he was wide ass open instead of making it a tough contested catch. But that's one you want Ridley to come down with on that particular play. And I told you he's probably the best number 2 in the league, but he's not a number 1 wide receiver, I don't think. But he's had his moments this year, but I think he's a number 2. He's the best number 2 that this league has to offer right now when he's right. Cody 1804 says, very happy with this team right now. The run defense has worried me all year, but besides a couple of plays, they played good. And as I mentioned, unlike past years where you looked around at the landscape of the NFC and you said, man, like 2 years ago, the Saints, they looked like a buzzsaw. You're like, man, how the hell are we going to beat them? And you weren't at that level 2 years ago, but still, you know, the Saints were the team to beat in the NFC. Last year, the 49ers were the team to beat in the NFC, and Seattle wasn't too far behind. Both of them played credible defense. Nobody looks like that this year. So I don't think there's a team that you should be that worried about if you're Green Bay this year, unlike past years. Hype Dude says, man, that's a bad man. Yes. Yes, he is. Archangel says, could this be Quinn's last game as Atlanta Falcons head coach? I don't think so. I really don't think so. Again, I look at Arthur Blank, and I just don't see a guy that's going to just can Dan Quinn in the middle of the season. I don't think he sees any benefit to it, and I just don't see it happening. So Reese says, the Falcons are done. It's over. Pack it in. 0-4 is impossible. Yeah, they're done. They're done. I saw the schedule, though, but I just don't see a team that is consistent enough to put together the amount of wins that it's going to take to get them back to a level where we can even start having that conversation. They literally would have to win 4 out of the next 5. Just to have that conversation, they need to win 3 out of their next 4 just to get back to 3-5 where we're looking up and saying, hey, don't forget about Atlanta. I don't know if they're capable of doing that. So JP says, both of today's games were snooze fest. And did I not call before the season that Bill O'Brien was not making it to week 4? You did. I got to give you credit on that. Now, you are what I call a credit whore. You want credit for everything. However, this time you do deserve credit. You were all over this, JP. You said it, and I didn't believe you. And I actually told you there's no way he's getting fired because Deshaun Watson isn't going to allow him. I remember this conversation very vividly. You were adamant that he was going to get canned before week 5, and you were right. So I got to give you credit on this one because you did call this. You did call that he would get canned very early in the season, and I just didn't see it happening because I said Deshaun Watson isn't going to allow them to lose 4 straight games to start the season. Boy, was I wrong. Reese says, it seems like every week someone new is stepping up for Green Bay. That's because they have Aaron Rodgers, and it's a lot easier when 12 is getting you the football. It is. We went through this list already, though, of Aaron Rodgers and how he makes a star out of somebody every week that Davante Adams doesn't play. Reese says, he's not just a bad man, he's a pissed off bad man, or a pissed off man, he says. Yeah, he's playing like it. You said that after week 1. You said, man, I think they might have pissed Aaron Rodgers off. We'll see, man. We will see. Reese says, Bill O'Brien will be an NFL head coach again soon, or will he need to be an offensive coordinator somewhere or go back to college before he gets back in the league? I think he could get a college coaching job if he wanted to be a head coach again. He won't get another job in the NFL, at least not right away. After what he's done in this league, and what he did to this Texans organization, I don't see him getting a head coaching job anytime soon. That's not to say that he won't ever get another opportunity. He'll never get the kind of power that he just had. He will never be the GM or anything like that. He'll never be in that position again, no matter where he goes. If he wants that kind of power, he's going to have to go to the collegiate ranks to be in that position of power where he's overseeing the entire organization. But in terms of an NFL job, he'd have to be a coordinator, or he'll have to sit out if he wants another job. Again, he's not the type of guy that left on the type of terms that says, oh yeah, he'll get another job somewhere else. Like, he did such a bad job in Houston at the end with the way he handled some of the GM stuff and how this team flamed out under his watch that I just don't see him getting another job anytime soon. He'll have to work his way back to a position where someone would be comfortable enough giving him another opportunity. But I wouldn't rule him out as an NFL head coach down the line. It's just not happening right now. If he wants to be a head coach again, right off the bat, he'll have to go to the collegiate ranks, I think. Archangel says, they pissed Rodgers off when they got Love. Hey, yo, why they do that, Lou? Because they were trying to plan for the future. And, they felt like this was an opportunity to get a guy that had the same skill set as Aaron Rodgers. They look at Jordan Love as a younger, cheaper version of Aaron Rodgers. And let's not act like Aaron Rodgers isn't 36. He's no spring chicken, but when you look around the landscape of the league and you see how long these quarterbacks are playing for, Aaron Rodgers, if healthy now, don't forget, Aaron Rodgers comes with some injury history. We've seen the ankle, we've seen the knee, we've seen the concussions. Those were a big problem too. So Aaron Rodgers, he's a banged up dude. So, we saw the hyperextension of the knee tonight. Let's hope that doesn't turn into an issue, because he hyperextended the hell out of his knee tonight on that play where he stubbed his toe and then boom, he hyperextends his right knee. You're hoping he stays healthy, because when he's healthy, he's dangerous. When he can't move, he's not the same guy. So they just looked at all of that, and they looked at his age, and they said he can't do this forever. This is a guy that we think can sit behind him, learn. If we think their skill sets are very similar, who better for Jordan Love to learn behind than the guy that we think he most resembles in this league if we're comping him to someone? And so they took a chance. And we'll see if it works out for him. Reese says, I was doing some scouting this game, Lou. This Packers team scares me. We play them week 6, and I'm not looking forward to it. We need to be 4-1 heading into that game. That should be fun. Week 6, it'd be great if that was on a prime time, but that's probably going to be America's game of the week on Fox, 425. Looking forward to watching that one. That should be a dandy. Captain Spartan, you should be afraid. You should be very afraid. Captain Spartan 04 says, who misses John Abraham more, Falcons or Jets? Both have had a true pass rusher since he retired. I don't know, man. That's funny that you bring that up. I mean, there was that one season that Vic Beasley went for 16 and a half sacks. There was that one year, right? I guess. I don't know which team misses him more. Maybe the Falcons, I guess. Cody _1804 says the Falcons didn't feel like they were playing to win. They felt like they were playing just to keep the ball out of Rodgers' hands, not to win. I don't think they felt like they were going to win the game, and you know how that goes. I felt like my team felt that way this weekend. Like, hey, we're just here not to get blown out, not to get embarrassed, and they didn't. They didn't come close, but they didn't get destroyed. And the Falcons kind of had the same kind of look on their faces when they were playing in this game. Azad Bilal says, Rodgers is second in my MVP ballot so far. 13 touchdowns, no interceptions, but I could easily see him passing Wilson, as I feel he's doing it with less at times without Adams and Lazard. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I told you what's going to ultimately happen if these two continue playing at the level that they're playing at. And let's say that Russ cools off a bit, but Rodgers keeps going on a steady pace. I still think they give it to Russ because there's been a lot made of him never receiving an MVP vote to this point of his career, which is blasphemy. But what happens in the NFL is you only get one vote to cast. It's not like the NBA, and I've already explained this, but it's not like the NBA where you get, a first, a second, and a third place vote. You don't get to spread your votes out. You don't get to see, well, man, he was this close. He was this many points behind the leader in the clubhouse. You just get one vote, and he's never gotten a vote. So at this point, I think you're going to see a lot of these writers and media members who have votes this year overcompensate for the fact that he's never gotten a vote, and they're going to vote for him this year, and that's going to lead to him winning the MVP. I really do believe that. But he deserves it. If he continues to play the way he's playing right now, he deserves it. But Aaron Rodgers is going to make it interesting, and don't count out Mahomes either, because we know he's very capable of going off on a stretch where he could throw, 14 touchdowns in, a 3-4 week stretch and no interceptions. So don't count out Mahomes either in that conversation. And I know this may be a little premature, but don't sleep on Josh Allen either. I know he's not going to beat out Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, but his name deserves to be mentioned. When you start having that MVP conversation, his name deserves to be brought up because of the way he's playing right now and getting Buffalo off to that 4-0 start. Gregory Lightbody says Dan Quinn is probably getting fired next. Maybe. I wouldn't rule it out. I don't see it happening, but I wouldn't rule it out. Larry G's the best says, I want my Packers to trade Jordan Love right now. Maybe your team can take him off our hands for y'all first and second and a fourth. Nah, I'm good, even though I love me some Jordan Love. If I'm going to give up that kind of haul, I'm giving it up to go get one of these other boys in the draft. I'm going to get my own stuff. I don't want your guy that's already 1 year into a 5-year rookie deal. I want my own guy, start my own fresh, clean slate, my own guy that I evaluated that I want if I'm going to give up that kind of haul for a guy. But, they didn't draft Jordan Love just to trade him away. They drafted him because they feel like he's the future of this organization. So he's not going anywhere. Cody _ says, on Twitter and even in this chat, I'm seeing Packers fans wanting to trade Jordan Love, and I don't want to. I like him as a prospect, and he's very talented. Rodgers won't play forever, and that's what you have to understand. They had the foresight to draft him. Now, maybe it was a year or two early, but they really liked his talent. They really feel like Rodgers has, some good football left in him, and so he doesn't have to play anytime soon. And that's the right approach because Jordan Love wasn't ready to play right away anyway. So I like the approach. I thought it was a year or two too early. This same move being made with a 38-year-old Aaron Rodgers versus a 36-year-old Aaron Rodgers, not coming off of a 13-3 season in which you were in the NFC Championship game, maybe there's a lot less scrutiny. But this is when you had the opportunity to do it. This is the guy that you liked, so you did it. We'll see how it turns out. But I don't think trading him is the answer. I just don't like that Aaron Rodgers won't finish his career in Green Bay, but if that's the way it has to be, that's the way it has to be. Larry G's the best says, Jordan Love in a 4th-round pick for Scary Terry. Make it happen. Look, if you're going to get a young quarterback, he needs somebody to throw the football to. That's called hustling backwards. When you get the quarterback, but now you look and say, well, damn, who's he going to throw the football to? Like, even if you draft a first-round guy, it's no guarantee that guy's going to come in and be a true number 1 wide receiver. We know we got a number 1 wide receiver in Terry McLaurin. We feel confident in that. So, no, you're hustling backwards when you do stuff like that. Stop trying to rob me of one of the few items that I do have. Archangel says, we flipped the switch second half of the season last year. Why not this year, Lou? Laughing my ass off. I mean, it's possible, but you can't keep digging yourself these types of holes and think you're just going to all of a sudden start playing exceptional football and start winning games that you're not supposed to win. It doesn't work like that every single year. So, if you're going to flip the switch, you better flip it now. You can't wait till the second half of the year. You're 0-4. You didn't start 0-4 last year. You started, I remember you beat Philadelphia week 2 last year, if I'm not mistaken, on a Sunday night. So you didn't start the season 0-0 last year. You might have been 0-1 after week 1. But you didn't start the season off 0-4. So if you're going to flip a switch, you better flip it now. Starting with Carolina next week. Emperor Meat says, I wanted to shed a manly tear as Mr. Rodgers won me my fantasy matchups. The man is a god. Also a shame that Quintorris Lopez-Jones got hurt again, which also hurt me as well. But look, they shouldn't have even played him tonight. Okay? You should have been able to say confidently, damn, I need to bench Julio. They should have gave you that option earlier in the week instead of having you not knowing if you should sit him or start him or what. But at the end of the day, I didn't think you were going to get much out of him anyway tonight. I didn't think you were going to get much out of him because he was banged up and he got hurt again. Hopefully Aaron Rodgers did enough to help you win. Larry G's the best says, forget what Cody said, that Cody guy said. I believe Aaron got 7 more elite years in him. And that may be the case. That truly may be the case. I just don't think you're going to get to see all 7 of those take place in Green Bay. You know, you might get 3 more of those in Green Bay, and then he'll have to play the other 4 somewhere else. And that's a shame because your last legend didn't get to finish his career in Green Bay. And I was hoping that wouldn't be the case for this one, but looks like that's what it's going to be. We've hit the hour mark. So it's time for us to glide to the side, man. I appreciate all of y'all. And make sure that I didn't, no more super chats. So appreciate y'all chopping it up with me. And it's late, man. You know, this Monday night game obviously started a lot later than it would have normally. So we burning the midnight oil. But I appreciate y'all chopping it up with the kid. And I really do appreciate you guys. So if you're out there and you're still hanging tight with me, make sure that you sub up the channel if you haven't already done so. Most of you have, but some of you may not have. So make sure you hit that subscribe button for more great content. Also, make sure you turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. So when I go live, you're on live with me. And also, hit that like button on the way out. Show some support and some love for the kid as I continue to try to grow here on this platform. I thank you guys for all that you do for the Louie T Network. And I look forward to chopping it up with you guys in the near future. Remember, new podcast episode Wednesday will be live at noon for the Louie T Network podcast. Remember, Wednesdays means it's social media maneuvers, means you guys get a chance to take over the pod. Come ready with your questions, and we'll have a great time chopping it up on Wednesday. Until then, I'll see you guys later. Have a good one. Stay safe. Take care. Good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.